So it's our time to call this meeting to order. Currently present on site are Julie Walker, Greg Swedenborg, Mike Morgan, Jim Kingwell here in the room. We have established a quorum and are ready to consider the inputs from applicants for funding the fiscal year 2020-21. Any comments before we start calling in the first applicant? Nothing to add.
Did everybody pick up their packets outside?
I've got the two Gregs and Steve,
Uh-oh.
which Greg Bell is not.
I wonder if Stephen doesn't know that this is happening.
He was on the emails.
He was, okay, oh, here. He's responding to me.
Way back from Central Oregon.
Oh, he's still in band. Uh-oh.
Okay, we have two folks in the center part of the state and one outstanding member who will have to be able to assess the information just from the written applications. Can we go ahead and call in Elaine, our first scheduled applicant?
So she is on Zoom.
Aha.
Can you,
Welcome, Elaine.
hi, how's everyone doing?
We think good.
Good.
So we'd like to hear a rundown of your proposal.
Well, so we're not really sure what the 2021 tour is going to look like, but we're definitely going to have a lot more time to put digital content together. The 2020 tour, we were being so hopeful for so long. And we just had homeowners who either couldn't travel, so there's no way to get into their houses to do anything. So it was just a real big letdown. As you know, it's a huge fundraiser for our organization. The 2021 tour, though, we have already started gathering digital content and creating interactive maps. We're working with some locations and some homeowners for the 2021 tour. So in the event that we can't move forward with it as we normally do, we are prepared to have a digital portion where people will be able to drive. We're not focusing on locations. We're focusing on, we're including Arch Cape, Talavana, and Cannon Beach in the entirety of the tour, because we're just going to move forward knowing we're probably going to have to include more driving this year than we have in the years past. And either way, we're going to have the digital content because we should have it in the event anything happens. You know, as you know, a lot of these homes are smaller in size, so having a lot of people crammed in them is not really good for right now. But hopefully by September of 2021, we can still move forward with a physical and digital event. I think by that time, people too are kind of used to more digital events, and so it won't be as a shock for them to move forward with that. We've already started moving forward with some marketing because, as you know, we had to shift some of our 2020 marketing that we couldn't get out of to the 2021 tour. So we've already been marketing the weekend of events. If we can move forward, it will be, you know, a Friday night event followed by a full day of events on Saturday. With a later event on Sunday to include possibly a 2-day tour. As you know, we have kind of an option if we're doing digital content. And if we're opening where we're touring, that opens up a lot for us as well. So we have a lot going on for this. That's a little bit different. If we can't do these in-person events, or we have to restrict in some way, you know, how many people, we can just have the same houses each day and then different people who go on the tour each day, or we can just utilize the digital content with a drive-by aspect, if that makes sense. So they would go, they'd have an interactive map. If they're unable to figure out how to use that, they'd have a physical map that would allow them to drive by each home, pull up imagery that will have like the 360-degree photos that you see for vacation rentals and for real estate. And then we would also have interviews, historic information that would go along with that they can just kind of click on and learn some information. As I said, we've actually started already doing this with some locations and creating these really cool interactive maps. So it's been an interesting process because we're all doing it remotely, but it's been it's a learning process, but that's our proposal for 2021.
Notice that Friday concert and opening reception, of course, those things, as you're recognizing, all subject to a cap on the total number of attendees. You've been so innovative in getting the realtors' use of 360 view cameras for one of the contingencies here. Have you thought about multiple venues or multiple speakers for your luncheon and lecture? Not that you could know those things now, but it appears to be the type of thinking that you're indicating with adaptations based on the COVID requirements.
Right. I've been talking to Doug Dewar and possibly creating some content myself. A lot of people have wanted me to kind of talk about a couple different things that I've done speaking events for, but I'm too busy doing the tour. So we could have digital content that airs while people are here, or kind of do an open air thing. It also depends on the weather. We've been very lucky with the tour the last few years. This year, had we moved forward, everything would have been on fire. I don't know if anyone could have done anything anyways, but the hope is that, we have a lot of, not just a plan A, but plan A is that we move forward like we normally would do with an opening night event and everyone's kind of just doing the tour. Plan B is kind of doing a combination of things, which is digital content with the tour, getting people to come to Cannon Beach and participate in the event in a digital way. I think it's kind of similar the way that Sandcastle was doing it, but rather than like an open summer all weekend long, whenever you want, it would be a localized 3 to 4 day event. If it's all digital, it's really open. If they're not going into the homes, we don't have to worry about the homeowners being exhausted or tired because they've already done like the 360 thing. And so that's kind of leaves it open to be like a little bit longer event. So I know that's all, it's just, who knows what it's going to be then. I'm really hopeful that there's going to be a vaccine and we're kind of back to normal. That's my hope.
Well, it'll take several months after wide distribution of a vaccine before we can think about the masks coming off. But it sounds like the downside potential of this would create the content for an ongoing tour capability not tied to a specific date. I could see a positive downside if your plans had to change. Looks like you're putting together the research for content for the History Center itself.
Right. Well, we've been creating a lot of digital content since this has all started. That's for sure.
There he is. Stephen's on the Zoom.
Good. So is there a particular theme to the message of your marketing plan?
I think it's just, it's the usual Cannon Beach cottage tour and looking at the history of our community and integrating that with, that I know there's not a ton of art. Normally we work with artists to do raffles and things like that. And we'll probably do that. We did that this year. We did our fall raffle, even though the tour didn't happen. We typically work with, a lot of like the contractors and the home designers, and we focus on the idea and the concept of this small town on the Oregon coast and what that is and how people want to take that home with them, and that idea of the architecture and design of this small town America really. And we look at that and we, I work with John Gutenberger and I work with other people to kind of help me look at the homes and understand them a little bit and kind of explain that to people, but also how unique and interesting the history of this little town is, and hoping that people who come and they maybe already love Cannon Beach, or maybe they've never been to Cannon Beach, they get to learn a little bit about the history of how this place got started, how it kind of got the look that it has, and how that was really set about by different people, like the Paul Bartel's fireplaces, those are really quintessential Cannon Beach. And when they were made, that wasn't like the idea that the guy was like, I'm going to make this fireplace that's very Cannon Beach. It's just something that became synonymous with our community and our town, and that people have gone home and they try to recreate. So it's that idea of a lot of people who go on the tour, and I know I've said this before, people who are potentially looking at purchasing homes or designing their homes, or are themselves interior designers or realtors who are taking home ideas with them. And we, people who've been on the tour who've had houses for sale have sold them to people on the tour in the past. Not that that's our goal. Our goal is really promoting the history of our communities to people who maybe weren't aware of it. And then normally we try to integrate like music from our town and then local speakers from our town. And we have artists who showcase their work for the raffle. And then they have artists that showcase their work in the homes. So that's, that's part of that. But I think people really love going on home tours. So we really focus our marketing over the years. We've learned which places work and where it works and when we should do it, to get the people who are really interested in going on home tours to participate in that event. We also advertise in home tours that happen before our event happens, so that we can get those people who, maybe travel across the US just going on home tours to come to ours. So it's really just about, do you want to look in other people's houses, then come on this event. And that's, it's like, I've said it a lot. They're kind of respectful snoops. Everybody is just so interested in seeing what's inside, which is why, when we wanted to do these 360 things, I wanted it to be interactive, where maybe they could like click on a picture that looked really interesting in that home that, maybe get information on, and combine it with interviews so that people could understand, like when they're looking at the houses, they never know what they're going to be drawn to or what's going to interest them the most. And so being able to talk about it, and it could be like something as so unusual as a doorknob was a really big deal for our 2014 tour. It was something that Coaster Construction, I think Fred Higgins may have done. And it was just a very unique door handle that people, I don't know how many emails, maybe over 100 emails of people asking like where they could get it and who did it. And it was just something Coaster Construction did, and getting them in touch with Coaster Construction to kind of talk about it. And I think a lot of people who come, they want to take a little bit of Cannon Beach with them, and not whatever way that's going to be. If it's going to be a door handle or if it's going to be an art piece, that's kind of their goal.
Can you tell us, if you hire some services from a company Beyond 50, what do they do?
Beyond 50, they do an email blast, and they really hit our main demographic. They hit a lot of the Pacific Northwest, Portland, and Seattle. And then the woman who runs it, her name is Joy. She has a staff person who distributes marketing material for us. And they take our posters and they take our postcards and they distribute them around Portland and Seattle. And they just, they drop them off at the visitor centers and the chambers, and like just around town at like events and things like that. Like the Oregon Garden, what's the big garden event they have at the convention center in Portland? They take our postcards there and drop them off with people for us. So it's a really small price, and she does a lot of distribution for us, which I really appreciate, because we a lot of us don't make it up to Portland as often, and so that's really nice to have someone do that for us. So I just kind of meet her and drop everything off, and she gets that taken around Portland and Seattle and stuff. So that's been really nice.
Elaine, is there any of these items, if I'm playing devil's advocate to whether this is gone by next year or not, can some of these be pushed out a little bit in terms of dollars spent in case it has to be canceled? So there's less money that's already been on the table?
Julie, I think that's a great question. I think if I was going to look at those, the ones that I would focus on would be the annual publications.
Right.
Because it's like Sunset Magazine has been so fantastic and great, and we do get like a big mailing list from them. So whether the ad is for that year or it's just for like general, like, hey, Cannon Beach exists. So I couldn't get out of my contract with them this last year, but
Right.
I think like our Travel Oregon and a lot of those annual, I just couldn't get out of, and I'm still having ads run. And I feel like if that's something where you guys were like, there is a benefit to it. Yes, absolutely. More, but I think it's more people for the museum and maybe a smaller percentage. Like there is a response from it, I will say, but it's not as good as the other ones, if that makes sense. And it's
I'm just thinking like Seattle Times and the Oregonian. I don't know what your deadlines are for those, especially since the event's happening in September. Is it possible to wait till like March and?
So the
Or-
Oregonian is actually very, very flexible. Seattle
Okay.
Times, not as much, but the Oregonian, they really worked around with us. I don't know if it's because so many of their people were kind of going through, we had to they're canceling their events or whatever, but they are, I mean, I feel like I can wait until March, April even, with that ad, and I don't have to, it's not a huge amount. Whereas like Seattle Times, I have to kind of buy a package. Whereas the Oregonian, I can just buy an ad in the home and garden section.
Right.
That's it. And then I can run it for the exact time for how much I want.
Right. So Travel Oregon and Aqua, those are the yearly guides, right? So that you kind of have to suck those up now regardless.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if, Travel Oregon is our annual,
Yeah.
the Oregon Coast Visitor Guide is our annual. And so they need to know by November
Yeah.
to get locked in. So those would be the two like I would really look at. And I think you've all probably worked with them before. So you have to like sign everything in November and know.
Yeah.
I have a question about Sunset. Elaine, do you think the expenditure for Sunset Magazine is cost effective, or would it be? I mean, it sounds like beyond 50 it looks like it's very cost effective given the 10-to-1 ratio with Sunset. I mean, have you gotten good feedback from people that come and saw the ad in Sunset?
Yes, but a lot of the feedback. So this year the event didn't happen, and so I got mailing list of people who are interested in potentially attending the event the following year. That was about 1,100 new contacts, which is great. But if it's not happening, that's not as beneficial as like Beyond 50, where people have the postcard in their hand. Maybe I feel like publications, at least for me, when I get a newspaper and I'm like, oh, this is really cool, I like this idea, and then I realize, oh, the event hasn't happened, I don't save it for a year. I don't have room for it, so I'm going to recycle it. But I do keep postcards on my refrigerator of things I want to go to. So I know those are like our biggest expenses too, as far as marketing goes. I think looking at the annual publication, but Sunset was one it's really expensive, and I couldn't get out of the contract. And even though I do get that contact list, which is wonderful, and we will be sending them a postcard about the 2021 tour, if it can't happen for some reason, it's not as beneficial. Or maybe it is. I don't know. I don't think so.
I would almost think that 1859 Portland Monthly would be a better investment, but I don't really know. I'm just
I've
speculating.
done both of those for several years. I did 1859 for about 3 years, and I did Portland Monthly for several years. In fact, I did Portland Monthly last year, and I didn't see any response from it. Nobody saw our ad in either of those publications. I don't know if we weren't just reaching the right demographic, or if they went through a rebranding since then, maybe, but there just wasn't really the response. And I'm really looking for, if I'm going to spend that kind of money, I want people to say, hey, I heard about you in the Portland Monthly, or I heard about you in 1859. And the fact that I wasn't getting that, I kind of tried to focus our funding into ads that were getting response, which was ads like the Sunset Magazine, the Oregonian, the response from our postcard mailing, which was increased due to our mailing list from Sunset Magazine. So those were really kind of getting more bang for the buck for us, which is why I focused more on those.
It is shocking. You have Portland Monthly down here for 2019, 3% versus Sunset Magazine, 14%. And you
Right.
know how I feel about the Sunset Magazine ad, which was not good. But that's just unbelievable. 14% response from Sunset Magazine.
They are right. When you check out at the grocery store, they're right there. They have a really great cover. It's very eye-catching to me. But yeah, I mean, Julia, you're right. You look at that number, and for me,
Yeah.
Portland Monthly is just not really giving me the.
And your postcard response is 17%, but some huge amount of that comes from the Sunset Magazine mailing list,
That's correct.
which continues to get bigger and bigger every year.
Correct.
Yeah.
So Elaine, this is Greg Swedenborg, and I have a question on, and not to sound negative, but in the past, I've mentioned about September being an odd time for this because the collected TLT funds in September kind of mirror August and July. The occupancy of the short-term rentals in town and lodging are in the high 90s. Is there, or was there any consideration, assuming, and nobody knows, but assuming you have to go plan B or C and it's not business as usual in September of 2021, was there any consideration for possibly doing this at a off time where the virtual aspect of it wouldn't really matter one way or another?
Well, I know that's been a conversation that we've all had. In the past, the tour has included gardens, and that's one of the reasons September was chosen, almost 20 years ago as the date of the event. Was just trying to make sure the gardens were looking the best. Also, a lot of the people who are on the tour are kind of like second homeowners. So we're trying to get them before they go wherever they're leaving to, or if they're year round, like it's not in the high season when they're busy working. So I think that's one of the reasons that was chosen. But for me, the only reason I'd be hesitant to push it too far back is how dark it starts to get. And if people are going to be driving to look at the outside of homes, like if we're going to do something like if it's all like digital and we want to push it back to like October, I think if it's all digital and it's October, it still stays pretty late. If we could do, because we were doing it, I guess it wouldn't really have a set time frame if you're just doing a drive-by kind of situation. I think if we moved forward with it just being like a drive-by digital content, I think that moving it later in maybe the end of September or October wouldn't be a bad idea, especially this year because there's so many fires in September. I don't even think we would have been able to do it had we tried because the air quality was so bad. I think it would have probably gotten rescheduled anyway to, October or something. I just don't want a lot of people driving around at when it's pitch black at 5 o'clock in the evening. But if it was something where we did it in October, I think that would actually be an idea that would work. I haven't set any dates on my marketing. I've just said September 2021. So it could be towards the end of September. And I think people are open to rescheduling too.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from committee at this time? Okay, Elaine, I'd like to thank you for the presentation. Appreciate the ability of you to respond to questions, be on top of it. So thank you very much for applying.
Thank you so much for being able to fit me in this early in the schedule. I'm actually leaving right now. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Take care.
We have on site Jim Pano from the chamber. Call you up. So, hi, Jim. What's up first?
I think let's start with Fat Bike. Because that's got a couple of different aspects to it that you should be aware of. It has the final report. That includes that we had to reschedule and why we had to reschedule. Because we were looking at doing the Fat Bike in the fall. And we had COVID plans in place, pretty extensive plans that we felt were adequate. But when it came down to it, the insurance company that was covering the festival didn't want to cover it because of COVID. So they pulled their insurance at that point. And then the other aspect was the landowners that Lucci Creek Trails were on, which we were including this year, also felt like having an event during COVID was willing to do that. So we lost two major aspects that were important to making that festival happen.
Dates that were, was it September for that?
October.
Oh, it was coming in October. Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Like next week.
Supposed to be
This week?
This weekend.
This weekend.
Freed up some time on your end.
Which probably turns out to be a good thing, but for my schedule. I reached out and I talked to Daniela with Oregon Rides and Events and everything. Continue working on this and planning it and getting it ready to go forward in spring back to our original date. And that's why we put the TAF request in for that. It put us in a little weird situation where this is the end of the previous year. So I actually do have a check to give back to the city here that I brought with the funds. And as I was wrapping that up, I need to get with Lori and make sure that my numbers are correct. Because I think our accountant only took into account what funds were dedicated to the Fat Bike. And then when we wrapped up all of our events last year, we kind of consolidated that to one number for, so the city only sent us one check rather than several. Just to simplify the accounting, but that didn't translate into our accounting system to get back. So I think we still owe more money.
You did anticipate one of our early questions about what was left from this event.
Right. I have a check here. It's about 6,000 and some odd dollars, and I think we still owe another 5. Those are kind of rounded numbers off the top of my head, and that's why I want to get with Lori at the city and make sure that we are absolutely accurate. So the only expense that we actually incurred for the Fat Bike Festival this year was the initial deposit to Oregon Rides and Events for beginning to plan and host and prepare for this event. And they're willing to carry that forward into next year. So
Nice.
they're keeping that deposit. That's the only expense we incurred, even though they did a lot of work and planning on their end for the festival. So now we're looking to take all the lessons that we learned and plan for COVID this year for the Fat Bike, moving it to spring back to where we kind of initially had the event. And there's been kind of a change in the biking world, really. Getting outside and being on your bike is a very wonderful COVID thing to do. So there's a really big push now. If you reach out and talk to any bike, they're selling bikes for free, and Fat Bikes are definitely we're getting out into the nature and the wild and enjoying bike riding because you're kind of social distancing just by being on a bike. So there's a big push for that. Travel Oregon and Association are both promoting outdoor recreational adventure and biking is part of that. So there's 3 different recreational areas up and down the coast that are looking to promote fat bike. And our festival was the first one that came online. And we're proud to be the first fat bike festival and a part of that community. And right on the beach, it's really nice. So to address the COVID aspect, and imagine you guys will hear this all along. What will COVID be? I think we showed in our final report that we were on top of every COVID aspect that we were aware of. And we fully intend to do that, but also realizing that could change. We've seen COVID requirements change our time. So we will, of course, be monitoring all that and prepare for that. When our event comes.
Are you expecting to have the same problem with insurance and the Cochise Creek people?
Those will be ongoing conversations. I think we've been going through a fat bike, or not a fat bike, but a biking insurance company for this. I'm going to reach out and talk to our insurance company and see if we can cover that inside our own organization. So that way we'll have options depending. We're exploring all the options available to us to make sure that we can make that happen.
So it still could be killed by both of those things again. It's possible.
Yes, I wouldn't say it's not. I can't say it's not, but I think we have the time now to actually have more in-depth discussion with each of those to make sure that we're fulfilling what their requirements are or finding out what their concerns are so we can address them. And be able to do that.
Your plan had allotted for time slots in between bikers being released up in the Cochise Creek Trail. So if they're concerned over the liabilities, as we all are, they're unlikely to change in the short term, given the rates of COVID expansion. But is there an alternative to the attraction of like the Cochise Creek trails?
Well, we can always go back to our initial plan, which was the beach ride and having other beach events that don't require the Cochise Creek and the Forest Trail. But we want to have an expansive event, so we really want to include as much as we can. But we can pare it back a little bit too if we need.
How much are they going to charge for the event? What's the admission or the ticket price?
I don't think they have that in here, but we have two different, the actual ticket price. When we developed ticket price previously, we had a single day price and a full day, a full package price. And that price included a shirt and whatever swag we could gather together to be part of that. So that there was a value, not just in participating, but you actually got something for it too.
But can you ballpark the figure
Yeah.
for the registration?
$100, couple $100.
No, I don't believe it was that. I believe it was more around 40. $40 for the full weekend and then a lesson.
You have income 900 for full and 1,000 for one day. I just don't know how many people that is on your budget here. I just don't know how many people that accounts for. Seems like last year you said it was going to be between 30 and 40-ish, something like that. That brings it down.
Yeah, and the first year was way low, like $10 or.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the first year we did $10 as
Yeah.
just be sure to show up. And most of the people in the fat bike community didn't think it was a real event because it was so cheap.
Right, exactly.
And so the second year we raised it to, I believe, $29 and then included a shirt.
Yeah.
It was 29 or 35. So this year we expanded that to have like a full weekend and a day package, so that way they have options of
Yeah.
which they wanted to do. But we never really created that registration page because.
You never got there.
At that point.
On your event management in the budget, it says 9,500 for the event director. Does that include the money that they're keeping from this year's canceled event? Is this 9,500 on top of that, or does this include that?
That includes that. So that was one thing when I was putting this together after I submitted it, I was like, no,
So this will actually be less.
yes,
Okay. And how much money did they take from last year as the deposit? Do you remember?
1,700.
Okay, thanks.
And that's the private company that's putting this on,
Yes.
the event director.
Oregon Rides is based out of Newport. They're a great company. They know all about putting on biking events. They've done mountain biking events and other events. And we were very lucky to get them at the very beginning of this to help us organize a biking event. With their knowledge, their contacts, has been invaluable throughout the whole process. We wouldn't, I don't know where we would be without their participation.
In your opening remark about unused funds coming back to the city, you had two figures, 6,000 and possibly something around another 5,000. Is that from this specific event or from all of your events?
It's just, the only event left is the fat bike. We've already done the accounting for all.
Everything else.
events. And we did that in the final wrap up with Lori. We calculated out which event was in return funds, which event was going to receive funds. And we did the math on that, and it all came down to an $800 check that came to us. So
Oh, I see what you're saying.
yeah. So rather than do
But,
one individually,
yeah,
so what the fat bike got was the full allotment
mhm,
for the event.
yep.
So it would be what was allocated minus the 1,700. And that's what should go back, which I realize this check doesn't. So I want to get with Lori and to make sure we're.
So that amount is all fat bike, not culinary and videos,
Correct. I'm only talking about.
just fat bike.
fat bike.
Okay,
Essentially, it was a very low risk investment.
Right.
In that we lost almost everything's coming back. A little bit's rolling over in the deposit and there's
exactly.
maybe a couple $100. And you, in 2021, working with Oregon Rides, if this was to happen again and come April or whatever the date is, you know, it's Greenwood Resources says no, the insurance people say no. Would they just kind of say, okay, let's roll it over again to October? And if October is no good, let's go to 2022. Because what I'm looking for is that same low risk. You know, there's no money spent really up front.
Right.
Without talking to them about that, for sure, I couldn't say absolutely, but working with them for several years now, they've been super flexible and I think they would be glad to roll that over. And they just want to make sure that they continue to do this event and help create biking events up and down the coast rather than over the valley. That's really what we're trying to establish out here on the coast. And I think they would be absolutely flexible on it.
Good.
I would be shocked if they would.
Hey, Jim, this is Steve. I saw that you are targeting or have set for an attendance goal of 150 attendees. With your previous event, you had just under 50. You've got a year off, limited marketing funds. How are you going to get to 150? What's the plan?
So there's two aspects to that. That 150 was the goal after year 2. And I didn't adjust that in our calculation.
Okay.
Haven't communicated what our goal is for this year, given the COVID and all the different aspects. One of the other things that we talked about, because Oregon Rides had reached out to other events that have taken place in Oregon. And most of those events are at 25% capacity. So we felt that that was a big scare in putting our event on this year. So if we were going to do that, that would take us down to back to maybe 40. Even if we reach that, we're trying to attain that goal, but we haven't really set that goal because I haven't
Okay,
had an in-depth conversation with Oregon Rides about what we really think we can achieve this year. We do know that our numbers on the second year, I'll remind you that it was terrible weather that year. And it also crossed over another biking event, a major biking event on the West Coast. So there were a couple of factors that which we were avoiding this year.
Wouldn't a fall event be better weather? I mean, if you were gonna go for early October rather than the spring?
Who knows? You've lived here long enough, Mike.
Well, I mean, I'm just thinking, you know,
Yeah.
we're not gonna, you know, April and early May, we're not, that's only, what, 6 months away. We're not gonna be out of the woods, you know, by that time, so. I know it's an outdoor event and all that good stuff, but it seems like, you know, who knows?
You've got 1,900 for your registrations in your budget and 40 people at $40, $1,600. So that's not that far off. If you shoot for 40 and I mean, $40 is still a lot. You might have them cheaper than that if there's a one-day pass or something, but still that's not that far off from this number. So.
Not that this, I mean, it somewhat relates to this event. I'm just a comment. This summer has been, the amount of people traveling with bike racks is exponentially with the previous year.
Would notice it just in our parking lot.
Yeah. And it's very obvious that more people are traveling. And I don't know if that's a COVID thing or a Clutchie Creek thing or whatever, but the biking has definitely become more popular.
Yeah, and there's a big push from the travel agencies on the outdoors and outdoor rec, specifically in Oregon, because we have such great outdoor rec opportunities. So they're really pushing that, and we want to take advantage of that and be a part of that.
Right?
Further questions, Steve?
I don't have any other questions, Jim.
Great. Okay, well, Jim, can we move you on to your next application?
Hey, Jim, one comment.
Yes.
I was wondering if it's possible to mute Jennifer's mic.
Typing.
The
Typing,
typing is as much of what I hear as anything.
being covered with a towel.
Towel.
We were
Can
practicing
you,
earlier.
can you
to see
do a little practice typing to see if
That-
that's a,
I'm sure that'll be great. She types really fast too.
I know, it's intimidating.
Much better.
Okay, good.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. You're a guinea pig for tonight's council meeting. You know what to do tonight.
Okay,
So next, I would like to move to the North Coast Culinary Fest. Because I'm sure there's multiple questions about that.
Can I ask my?
notice the date.
It says the amount of TAC funding you were given last year was $128,833. That can't be right. That's like half our budget.
That's the entire,
The one is a typo because on page 3,
I think it was 28,000.
28,330.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
That's strictly a typo.
Okay.
But one should not be.
Thank you. 28,833. That makes a lot more sense. Okay.
Yes. The culinary event really couldn't happen during COVID because you didn't have the facilities and the restaurants that we need to make that happen. Gathering people together in a group to eat meals It's just not really feasible. And we considered moving into a fall event and really ran into the fact that there was something happening already that we made it difficult to pick another date to do that. And we also realized the COVID was still going to be happening and none of those things were going to change. So we opted to postpone it until 2021. And then as we got through summer and kind of began having conversations again of what we plan to do, we talked about when a vaccine might be available, when that would be possible to get together in groups and have a meal. And even if a vaccine came out yesterday, we don't believe that people will be ready or the time would be right this coming spring to have a festival, because there wouldn't be confidence in the people we want in the event to come and enjoy a festival. I think that there would still be residual fear of that, and maybe people aren't. And we really had those discussions that as a group, we decided that it's probably just best to move it out to May of 2022. So you're probably wondering why we're asking that. In order to plan this event, we kind of are in a situation where I think Cottage Tour was before. If we're going to continue doing these asks in October with a decision, whenever you guys come to a decision, then this event will be put on a short time frame to plan and prepare for such a large event. So really, I wanted to make sure to put this in because I wanted to take that into account so that we can actually plan for the future. And so it kind of comes back to a question of if TAC is going to stay on in October or go back to a spring request, to when is this, will this be appropriate to ask for funding? So without knowing the answer or talking to you guys first, I wanted to make sure you didn't miss the opportunity to ask. And so that's why this is brought forward for this request period.
Well, personally, I was pleased to see you push it out to 2022. I mean, I think that's a responsible thing to do. And, I wish everybody was, not thinking about, trying to rush their events.
And I think this is a single year adaptation at this point for the date. And I believe that we are still on track for a round of applications next May, going back to the original, unless there's a permanent change, a policy change to shift the request dates. This was a response to the specific COVID condition and the level of information we had at that point in time. We have a good deal more information about how far out in the future this will project.
So like I said, I wanted to make sure that I didn't miss.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be a round in May of TAC requests. This one can certainly come May. We'll have time to do some more forward planning before that application process. So we'll actually have more information to provide you.
It would be good. I seem to recall in your final evaluations and things, one of the things that's suggested in this application was going to be changed, like the use of the ticketing company.
Yeah.
That's still in this application. It looks like a carry forward of a.
I carry forward because initially I had 2 days to prepare this request, and so I really took the one I had before and then given a week's notice. I didn't get any other additional information to make the changes to that. We did have a lot of discussion about changing the event. We don't need the ticketing agency anymore because we've taken, as a chamber, we've taken ticketing in-house.
In-house, right.
System, so there's no need for a ticketing agency. And we found a very cost-effective way to do that. So we're really happy with that system.
Mhm.
So we'll save money there, and we don't need to hire somebody to do that. So there's substantial savings there. The one thing that we were going to lose out on as far as funding for this, is the county has helped support this in the past. And from what I understand, that's not going to be available. in the future. Go back and really look at events and how we plan to run it and kind of work these numbers. So I'm actually happy that this will be a main ask because then we have to try to do all our due diligence and make sure we're accurate. Like I said, I didn't want to miss the opportunity and lose an event that Bob Lenore has put some much soul into doing, and we have a lot of our fellow chefs in the community that want to support this event. And we want to do a great event that's going to get Beach on the map for the culinary options we have in our community.
It looks like it's a 38% increase in the ask though from last year. You want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, our ask was 40 last year, and we were awarded 28.
The award was 28, that's right.
Workshop costs, are those for the people who are putting it on? Like the foraging is $1,500. Is that for the forager guy?
Yes.
And so for the dinners, this, like the $13,000 for a progressive one, are we paying for the food? What is in that number? Did I miss that?
Progressive, the way the progressive work, there's 3 different restaurants.
Yep.
That were all charging the festival a set amount, and that number was based on 12 people at the table.
Okay.
And there's 3 rotations, so that's. So each restaurant was charging, I believe, $25 a plate. And then we were charging the attendees a larger ask to cover those costs. So that would still only be attributed to however many people participated in the event. But these numbers are based on if we sold the event.
But are we paying for the food here?
Yes.
Okay, that is
The
the,
restaurant for their portion of the progressive.
but there's also making money on it. So
Yeah, that's.
this 13,000 only covers part of the food that, say, Surf Sand, Bistro. The Bistro has a plate that's $25, and so we're paying for $12.50 of it, and they're paying for $12.50 of it? Is that the idea?
No, the cost for the progressive, because this is not just this isn't just a meal. It's really to be an experience as well. So that cost was what we would pay per visitor. And then we would charge. So we were charging, so the 13,000 would be what we take in for the progressive, and the 9,000 is what we would be paying the various restaurants as part of that progressive.
Okay,
So yes, it would be for the food, the wine, the experience. of
okay.
that event.
I probably saw this somewhere. What's the ticket price for the whole Megillah?
I think a price for the whole show was $450 for the entire weekend, which included the progressive dinner, 2 different workshops, the night market, the brunch in the morning, the movie, and But you can see that's a pretty expensive price, but it comes with a lot of great food and a lot of great experiences and an entire culinary weekend. It's really inclusive. You got to attend the event or part of what we put on that was an experience in that as well.
So the actual request would be for the committee to take on some of the risk of the cost of presenting this for an event that assumes our input to generate a modest profit.
And we're designing each of the aspects of this to generate a profit. Any event, the difficulty is how many attendees do you have?
Are you talking about for the 560 number?
Yeah,
That's kind of peanuts for all the work that's going into it.
it is.
I mean, I would think the chamber would want to get a little more out of it than
All right.
chump change.
It seems like the chamber's doing it for PR because they're certainly not making money off of it.
Right.
The restaurants are going to make money off of it.
Lodging should make,
Lodging will make some money off of it. So I've got a question about, so you're not using the event company that you did last time, which was a big expense, but I'm still seeing crew is $9,000,
Right.
staff is $7,000.
So we are not using the event company. We are using an event planner. Tracy Abel to run and organize this event and to get her involved in the future for that, because she's great at running events and we're supporting our community members as well, doing it that way. So I've worked with Tracy and I enjoy working with Tracy, so she's a natural fit for all of us to do this together. And that's what she asked for.
So she's the $9,000. So what's the $7,000 for staffing?
Okay, so Tracy's one person
Oh, yeah, I know, I understand.
to manage and run ticketing and entry to various workshops and different venues will require people to cover those venues and make sure that the appropriate people are attending. And that's what through the first one, having certain people at different areas. And so we built that process. And I can say from a staff perspective from the chamber that our staff puts a lot of effort into this as well. So. We are, and actually the minuscule number that we're taking in as a chamber was a concern of Bob's.
Yeah.
And if we're gonna do all this work, you should get something for it. I will point out there's not a management fee in this or anything like that we're charging to put this on, which might be an oversight. Something we should include. But I really want us to grow and build this event. And Bob has grand ideas and he wants to do a great event. And the first one was a great event. And so I want to encourage that to happen. So I want to get this up and running. All our events, I keep saying, I want them to be self-sufficient as quickly as possible because we want these to be great events for our community. So I think we'll learn efficiencies as we go. We're going to have a chamber of the future. So I'm not going to make a big profit off of stuff, but once we get there, I certainly hope we maybe approach other events that we put on and bring in the funding.
I think you'll find respect for the sweat equity that's going into it.
Can you tell me what the $4,000 for equipment and $4,500 for transportation is?
So the Coast event, we actually have the movie in Seaside at the Times Theater because it's a wonderful venue to enjoy a film, and that would be food-centric film. So the question came, and we're having people drink as part of the event, and then we're asking them to drive to Seaside. That's probably not a good idea. So what would transportation cost? And we've talked to Laura's Tours about what she could do as part of this event, and those were numbers that she provided to transport a certain number of people to and from an event. James Beer House Brunch is another example of where we would be going to their heart for that experience, and mimosas and stuff for brunch. Probably not very appropriate to have people drive after that, including transportation costs.
Like a lot. She was charging $900 for all day running her bus. That's one bus and it's the smaller one for Sabre. If I remember correctly, I wasn't responsible for the budget, but that was 2 years ago. But gosh, that seems like a lot of money.
Question again comes down to how many attendees. So I
Yeah.
think that was two different buses, and one of those was a larger bus.
Was the larger one, okay.
Because we wanted to cover as much as we could.
Yep. And what's the equipment then?
So the equipment was rental of plates, utensils, kind of finer dining equipment for the events that we are hosting that are not in restaurants. Because Chamber doesn't have dishes and plates and cookware, and we're gonna need those. And typically those come from a party company based out of Portland. So those costs were calculated on what we would need for all of that. Of course, we would look at renting versus buying as an option, but we would calculate those once we get to that point.
Okay.
It looks like a work in project. My own response is that a lot of these details will have to be worked out, and the effect on the budget would affect the number for the request. And I think the next round of funding give us an opportunity for you guys to work on the details and us to get a clearer picture of what's being requested. I appreciate you being out front, and I do like the time frame.
The advantage we have now is having been postponed and dropped this year, we went through the process of thinking the whole event through in multiple different facets and how to do that. So I think when we get back together as a committee, groups to plan, we're way ahead in the planning process. So we'll be able to flesh out these details in much.
One of your other hats on as a DMO would seem that this would give a chance to build into some of your messaging the potentials that could be there in the future to help add to any promotional things with your request.
Yeah, the DMO is looking at supporting events and how they can do that. That's budget driven as well, so. It's not lost that we can take advantage of those. in the DMO world.
Well, if there are no further questions or skewering of Jim, might we move on to his third request? at some point, if we end up ahead of time, we might take a break just so we're not charging through the straight 3 hours. I don't know when we might work one of those in. But if we have timeframes in between any presenters, feel free to suggest a break. So we're just a few minutes ahead, but that's a good thing. We'll take it. Okay, you have a full-year proposal for us. Can you explain?
So the last 3 years, we've done the TAC video request. And we've been refining that process as we go, what videos we need to create. This last year, when COVID hit, we had planned to do a tourism video for our community, which we used part of those funds to do the video that Sam and I put together. And then Melissa started to come in and talk about how, and we created that video, keeping our community healthy and safe, which I felt was a natural transition given the time. Important thing to do at that point. And when we initially developed this plan, I always thought that the plan would be to promote the TAC events. So it would be based on what events are happening in TAC that we could then promote, and then do a promotional video for our community overall. We've added a few different things. We did ASAP Rock video with HRAP to help promote that as part of our community. So we're trying to identify specific things in our community that people would want to see and want to watch a video of. So we added a couple of those into this request, but really we want to make sure that we're able to help support all of the events and requests. But when we're putting this together, we're kind of guessing at the number of events that TAC might have. And I see there's 13 other events or 13 other requests to do other than a video request. So the question I would ask of you is how many of those people would like the support of the video created through this request? And we would be able to provide that. We've reached out to a lot of them and we've kind of picked those in the past, but I'm wondering if that process might be reversed and say who wants to be a part of this program. That would help define the finances of this to a degree and make it a little more streamlined rather than us guessing at.
So this is your way of separating the video program aspects that might be considered the job of a DMO versus the TAC request funding you're after.
You know, that's one of the questions that came up, and you notice also we didn't ask for a Northwest partnership or other DMO specific things because we're transitioning those into the DMO, as you guys have talked about in the past, because it makes sense. But this one, we want it to be about the community, about the TAC event.
And there's an inclusion of a community highlight video. Do you consider that highlights of the events, or is that highlight of COVID response? What was your thinking about the line item community highlight video?
So all it is, we have the option of a community highlight video. If it's appropriate to do a COVID response video or the next phase of COVID video, I think we would do that. If it's suddenly magically cured and gone, then we look at what does our community look like, how does it become kind of a video, or come back. Our community is open and safe. But whatever that is, we can transition to an appropriate video for the time. If everything is back to normal, then we can look at Hate Stack Black Awareness Program video as an example of a community-based video that is important for. I think that gives us the flexibility to do a couple of different options based on what's appropriate for a community given the year.
Do we have a fat bike and get lit video already?
I would have to check.
I can't remember if,
Site, we do have, Fat Bike, I know. We did that the first year, which is one of the most viewed, videos on our site. I believe there is a Get Lit, video as well. I say 2 years ago, but
I know that he took video. I didn't know if it was ever edited to be used. I can't remember that, so. Are we missing any tech events? Seminary didn't really get video of that, did it? Because it
A
only,
little bit.
Yeah.
We did other events.
Yeah.
It looks to me like there's an error on the front page. It's the amount of funding from TAC you were given last year at 14,471. Actually, later on, it says 11,831. So
Again, I'll talk to unless you can get these done, that they're, error on my part.
that's fine. I was just, it just seems like that's a big increase, for Seth to go from 11,800 to 16,200, for. It also seems that a lot of the things that are, the topics are outside the, they're worthwhile topics, but they're outside the scope of what the TAF should be funding to me, in my view, but.
like what? What are you referring to?
The COVID or it's more of a generalized, rather than focusing on the individual events or the art events, it's more generalized. But, not having, not reading a more complete description, I don't know if that's correct. But it is a 37% increase.
Over what we received,
Yeah,
because I believe it. Didn't look back at last year, I think it was fairly close to what we requested last year.
So you think that 11,800 number's wrong? It's, the page isn't numbered, so 1, 2, 3.
You could take the question response number to indicate which page you're on.
Include my sheet. And I apologize for not having those.
Well, there's another number in here on
On page number 7.
the number 7, the 22,900, asking for 100% of that number.
Here's a bit,
Yeah,
which
I just looked at last year's, just kind of in the record file, and it said that the approved by council amount for the event video was 11,831.
That number's real.
right.
do you have what the ask was for last year?
What the approved amount was for last year.
No,
The ask that bid is 22,900.
22,900 was the ask,
We approved about.
Right.
For last year.
yes.
It was actually asking less.
Right.
22,000.
I see what you're saying. So the 16,250 is
A smaller ask.
asking for this year, not 22,900 that was last year.
Last year's ask.
Right.
And then you're asking, so this 14,000 number is not correct. It was actually the 11,831.
Yeah, 14, I think, was,
Another year?
That-
I think it was that bike.
That's that bike.
Oh, okay.
You just got too many things going on.
No,
Too many
three-
asks.
Three separate asks in a couple of days. Quite the rush.
Well, are there any more clarifications we need? Or we sit on this, take it home, deliberate, come back and discuss and dissect?
I have nothing more to ask Jim. This is one I would like to discuss when we have the time to discuss it. in detail.
I think that will be at our next meeting.
Yep.
Pick apart all the numbers and,
Our next non-interview meeting.
correct,
We have another one of these tomorrow.
right, true. Indeed.
Okay.
Oh, we thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Gallery group.
We look forward to keeping our events and doing our work.
Okay.
So is Lila supposed to be next up?
Is Lila available or is anyone from the,
Is she going to be here in person or?
I did not hear back from her, so I left a message at the Arts Association and it said they were closed until Wednesday, but I left a message anyways, and I sent Lila several emails. So I was hoping,
aha. So this leaves us with the document itself.
Well, we could give her the opportunity to be here tomorrow,
Ah,
or somebody.
We can jam it in.
That's a possibility to make that time frame flexible.
right now you're kind of in a spot because your next one, if Lila doesn't come, she wasn't going to come until 2:40 anyways. But then the following one would be 3:05.
All right, moving along quickly. Typically, people expand to fill whatever time frame is allotted to presentations. And we're not in that place.
I just checked email again. There was nothing from Lila. And I did a follow-up email this morning as well, following up from my email I sent yesterday.
Okay.
That's weird.
Now, there would be
They didn't show. up for
advantages,
midterm Either, remember? Last year, they didn't show up for their midterm.
right?
Either. Oh, boy.
If she was going to show up, she probably wouldn't come until at least another 15 minutes.
Right.
Why don't we take the,
Break. Why don't we take a break? We appreciate your being here a few minutes early.
See, like that message, because he was gonna zoom in.
Aha.
Oh, no, because I didn't think about, when he called you, I didn't think about Marcy. Do you have her phone number or would she be at the 4680028? I'll call her real quick.
Uh, 0028.
Yep.
You could try that.
Perhaps you could try the cell number while she's trying that one. Let's see if Marcy can multitask.
oh, sorry.
You got it first.
Here. Is it possible you could zoom in now? That's good.
I just told Stephen we're getting ready to start again.
Okay. I just unmuted it, so.
Okay.
I think that's very.
All right, thank you. Okay, it's,
It looks like the print.
Okay, perfect.
you gotta start your computer.
I'm kind of embarrassed for the Arts Association sponsoring it too.
Wait for her to get in.
We'll give her a couple of minutes. To see if she's able to do that. Was there a timeline she might sign in or?
She said she had to go downstairs and start the computer.
Ah. Uh-huh.
So,
Perhaps we can start. I'm guessing that most of our queries are going to be thrown your direction.
I was guessing that too.
Oh,
So when in 2021? My first question.
When in 2021?
You have a date of event 2021.
October through June.
Yeah, the month of October,
Month of October.
the entire month of October. This is more of a combination of a year-round effort with the month of October, giving us some time to kind of see what is possible as far as events. It may be, it's likely micro events is my thought, best case scenario. So yeah, just 2021 on the first page is probably and more later in the application.
Here seeing, the seasonal focus, October to June and culinary, it seems like a theme. Almost seems like you're pushing every day is a culinary opportunity as opposed to one of the themes that Jim Pano came up with is every day is an art walk. It seems like every day is a culinary opportunity.
Yeah, I think so. And obviously, restaurants, even where we're at now that have outdoor seating, they're not as hurt as badly as what it's going to be the rest of the year. So part of the idea is to do something for restaurants when they're going to be in big trouble, I think, over the next several months. But yeah, I mean, promoting Cannon Beach as a culinary destination is the primary idea behind it.
Other idea I'm picking up here is the marketing efforts are to leave impressions that would seem to spread the focus from not a weekend or a specific event, but to a kind of experience.
Yeah, that would definitely be true for the entire year. And for the month of October, we're just kind of trying to recognizing that there can't be any large events, a series of events over the course of the month. That would be something that would be at least a safe bet, but that would give an entire month promotion. So that might be considered restaurant month in Cannon Beach.
Well, the idea of getting the Oregon Dungeness Crab Commission to try to make October a month, will the crabs cooperate?
No,
I thought not.
That's, it's getting into holding season for crab.
Right.
So that's, that's a concern as far as, potential sponsorship revenue. Everything's a concern, We're really just kind of looking at what we can do that will maintain the brand that we created for 10 years, try to move forward, doing something that's appropriate given the circumstances, and promote restaurants when they're going to need it most.
The focus on many applications prior to this have been on developing overnight stays on specific days. How does your strategy address overnight stays?
For anything that we produce in the month of October, we'd be able to track all of that. So if we can actually have some ticket events, we could track that. The rest of the year, it would be impossible to really track it. So the best we can do is results, which would likely be impressions. Either social media impressions, advertising impressions, PR impressions.
And your degree of confidence that you'll be able to use those impressions to actually create overnight stays in town?
I think I wouldn't know what number of impressions it would take to, average out to an overnight stay. If we get 100 impressions, does that mean, one person's going to book a room? No, I don't really know that, but it's kind of the way marketing works. There's not only so much you can track, really. So if she's got in yet?
Script there.
Good.
Hey, Gary, I have a question for you. So for 2021, you're moving the event to October. At least that's the plan. What about for 2022? Do you plan on putting that back in spring, or do you see this going full time to an October event?
I hate to predict right now. I think that spring timeframe is a good one because it's always been a week one.
Okay.
But I think, this could have us reinventing everything. And
Right.
maybe a month-long promotion, not that it couldn't be in March, but maybe this town is more suited to, a series of smaller events rather than trying to have one big blowout weekend. So I don't know about everybody else, but this has certainly made us kind of come back and reinvent what may be the best opportunity for us. So yes, it could come back to a spring month. It could stay in October. It may transition to a full month of events. I think maybe this will be the year that tells us that.
Okay.
It's a transitional year.
Okay. Well, no, I appreciate you pushing it back to another point in the calendar where we can use events or draws for tourism. I was just wondering, kind of, is this a one-off or is this a rethinking of the event entirely from both a schedule of events and timeline. I mean, theoretically, you could make it still a month, but have the month in spring. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do with it. I was just kind of wondering what your thought process was.
Yeah, I'm keeping it open and would want to hear your feedback and restaurants' feedback and just
Yeah.
and feedback and what makes sense moving
Okay.
forward.
Can you go into some detail about the micro events? I mean, you mentioned here, like, for example, 10 people doing a wine and cheese tasting. Would that be one, you set it up for one time, whatever the date is, or 10 people every other hour throughout the day? So it's actually an 80-person day that gets marketed to.
Probably somewhere in between that. It could be every Thursday in the month of October. There is one specific event. And one that we started outlining is a tasting of Pinot Noir. And these would be premium events, probably $100 a piece for a tasting. So we'd be serving premium wines and, the way it's worked out, now I have a few cases of wine sitting there that were not used this last year. So I've kind of got some of the budget covered in that. But we could do tasting like 2 Pinot Noirs that were on the top 100 wines of the year by Wine Spectator. Throw in a French Burgundy. Throw in a $15 Pinot Noir and have it be kind of a fun challenge for people to try to pick, what's the French Burgundy? What are the 2, Pinot Noirs of the year? What's the inexpensive Pinot? So things like that we might be able to offer several times. Like I said, every Thursday of the month, maybe every Friday of the month, there's something else. Maybe they move around a little bit, but kind of the beauty of that is it only takes 1 bottle of each wine that you serve to serve a group like that. So I only need to purchase, 1 or 2 bottles of wine for events like that. And like I said, I've got a lot of it already.
And my question, the reason behind that question was you want scale without crowds, ideally, and how you try to approach doing that, and get it from your answer.
And yeah, I guess it could be that there's early seating, a later seating. Not that any of them are really seatings, but there's that possibility too, that it can be shifted. You can get 10 people and then 10 people.
Or the volume of it. So if you have a one with wine and cheese or something, or tasting, or you have one with the art gallery showing off the artist, and a tasting. And, when I'm reading this and trying to get my head around your concept, is there things going on all month, all 8 of these months or whatever, how many there are, constantly? And
Yeah, and none of us know where any of this is going. So I sat down and calculated these numbers based on 8 events. A couple of events each week of the month. And those would be the events that we would produce that I budgeted. I'm hoping that other businesses will want to step up and do things.
This is Marcy. Could I jump in for a minute?
I'm sorry, Marcy.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yep.
What I was thinking too is Clatsop Animal Assistance, with a lot of smaller events, we may be able to participate 1 volunteer with 1 dog, just at 1 shelter animal at some of these events, if that's possible. I'm just throwing that out as an idea.
Yeah, it makes it a lot easier in class of animal assistants who has been tasked with, how many volunteers can you give us for, a few hours of the day on Saturday? And so this would take a little bit of the pressure off them to do their mission and provide volunteers. So that's a good point. Thank you, Marcy.
I was
Yes, I
gonna,
hope restaurants would be doing some special things, and there's a possibility that we could be bringing in, there could be a winemaker series that come to galleries, and I would hope galleries would participate by, ice ware might be an easy one because, then you're tied in with an actual demo. But, how can we bring the art galleries into this and get 10 people just be in that gallery for 2 hours? An hour and a half, something like that, so that it's not people rushing from place to place like it is in our wine line, but actually some time to be there and absorb, whatever their program is.
I have a question about the donation to the CAA. You've got 2965, which is like 2%, I guess, more or less. Is that typical numbers? I mean, it seems like a very, very low number for $116,000 budget.
What number are you using? What number are you referring to?
It looks like this was from 20, yeah, this is 2020.
That's our final.
Yeah,
Canceled event.
but that was, yeah, that was,
So that reflects, I think our total contribution to them ended up being, Marcy might be able to be clear about it, because I sent a check not that long ago, $3,400.
I can't remember the exact amount, but it was well over $3,000. And you're right, our event where we were going to actually be volunteering was canceled. So that was actually quite nice.
Yeah, I kind of recognized a flaw in our working agreement as far as what they got paid. So even though we took a pretty substantial loss in 2020, we did do the $3,400 contribution to CAA. We also did about a $1,400 contribution to the food pantry. Well, parts of both, all of the food pantry and all of the CAA contribution was when we went to refund our advanced purchase tickets, we gave them the option of donating their ticket fees to CAA or the food pantry, and they split pretty evenly. So ended up CAA came pretty close to $5,000 that we originally targeted for the pantry. Surprise donation.
I haven't calculated the percentage that most of the other applications that the nonprofits receive from these events, but it seems like it's in the back of my mind. It seems like at one point nonprofits that weren't their own sponsor were getting like 10 or 15% for just being the sponsor. Is that, Julie, do you remember that?
The only thing I remember with Get Lit was 5,000. They were getting 5,000. I think that's where you came up with the number of 5,000, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, and now Marcy and I have talked about a better way to handle it, because we had it in there for a certain amount per ticket sold. But this year we talked about it being 10% of the tourism and arts program. So that's why it's in the budget this year for $5,000 with our ask of 50. So it is 10% this year.
of the grant, not the total budget.
Not too far apart on the budget for 2021.
Right. So you're asking for 50,000 basically, which is up from 3750.
Yeah, we were on a good path. By being able to reduce the amount, we asked because we had to increase the revenues and we're not back to the starting. Things highlighted on the application there, Jim.
Oh, it's always the case. Well, they were aspects helping to define it as a marketing campaign for something going beyond a weekend, a seasonal focus, and something that's branding and creating an image of town. I focus so much on now spreading out participation in events over time rather than trying to focus crowd. That's mainly why you're seeing so many highlights from a distance on my application form here.
And we have done, we've done year-round marketing in the past, so it's not completely new. I mean, we use, we've got, a good following on Facebook and good following on e-newsletter. And so we've got those vehicles and we have used them. So, when we're not immediately promoting an event with the Sabre Canyon Beach Facebook page, previously we were always promoting Canyon Beach as a culinary destination, like restaurants were doing, just to keep action alive all the way year round. So we've kind of flipped the script a little bit this year, where it's much more of a year-round marketing campaign, and then whatever we can do come October. But the advertising is the same way. We've got advertising for Sabre Canyon Beach previously, and I feel like did a good job of positioning Canyon Beach as a culinary destination.
And we see 10,000 in here as a pass-through expense to get boosted exposure.
Yeah, and we thought we'd do some similar things to what we've done with the Oregon Wine Press Northwest, some online things, site called Local Wine Events, and expanding the boosted Facebook posts, because part of what I see we have the opportunity on our website. Our website is designed where we can create content, so create a page that maybe the best takeout food in Cannon Beach, how to, have a romantic dinner in Cannon Beach, and it be takeout. That would showcase our restaurants. We can have that posted on Sabre Canyon Beach, and then we can use that in our both e-newsletter and then in paid Facebook posts to get that message out further into an audience that we actually target.
And you're also printing 5,000 brochures as a physical handout starting at that time for the printed materials.
And yeah, that's kind of left in the budget. And now the thought would be that, brochures for a full October event that could go into distribution in summer.
What point would you have your October events nailed down that you'd be able to advertise them in a Wine Press Northwest? Because these are kind of vague, like there'll be events in October, but we don't know when they are, what they are, blah, blah, blah. At some point, you have to pull the trigger to have an actual description for an ad.
Yeah, that's always been a challenge. And our early advertising and early PR has always been pretty general. You know, we've been able to use some specifics in the past because we knew we were not going to have to reinvent the wheel on some things. So we probably are going to have some things nailed down that it will really be, it'll really be the how soon we get that brochure out. It's the real key date as far as when we want to have, you know, actual events outlined. And as you know, getting, especially restaurants in this town to commit to an event, you know, 6 months in advance is not an easy thing, but we, you know, we have to bring in all kinds of businesses and promote their events as well as the ones that we're going to commit to. So we've typically done 2 printings on a brochure. One's a little more about what we know at the time and get it up there early, and then reprint it when we really got the detail to it. So I'm assuming it'll probably be a similar circumstance. I don't know that brochure. I mean, it could be dining guide like. Also something just to promote doing something special over. That's a big part of this. I wonder how many we're going to lose because this is, it's gonna be a tough time for them without outdoor dining and with limited indoor dining for the foreseeable future.
We certainly appreciate your trying to, rethink events and redesign. I think Steve's observation about timing, whether this is a one-off or a redesign, it looks like it's responding to conditions that are unique to this year.
And I don't know about October in the future. I've always thought October is a month that could use a boost here. Now we've got some other events that it seems like have been talked about in November. So, but I mean, maybe we'll find that's a great fit. And maybe we'll find that we want to go back to a spring time frame. I don't know. I really wish we could do spring. Because a lot of us, a lot of our ticket purchasers also said, credit it to next year. And so now now we need to come back and offer something that is going to be months later.
I think spring is easier for the wineries also. This is harvest. The winemakers have been working for about 30 or so days already in the middle of harvest. And so I think to get winemakers or some well-known wine person to come to Cannon Beach, or to get a bunch of them to come to Cannon Beach in October, moving forward, it would be difficult. So I think that spring is an easier time to ask winemakers from the Valley or from the Pacific Northwest to come to Cannon Beach for an event.
If it turns, if, you know, we decide that we want to be moving back towards more of a major winemakers event, which is what the Wine Walk is essentially, and a lot of our events, October may not be the time frame because they are busy. But on the other hand, maybe this is a total new look at the event and it's not what it used to be.
That why there's a strong notion of this being a culinary event, not just a wine event?
Certainly a lot more focus on restaurants and the whole idea of Cannon Beach being a culinary destination. Part of that is a relief effort for the businesses that are hurt the most. I think are going to be hurt the most. And so, you know, we've always wanted more culinary, but, you know, that's really challenging for us to do on our own. Just because there's not, you know, there are not facilities for that. So we kind of have to rely on restaurants to bring the culinary. As you know, we've done some events where it's been heavy appetizers, but you know, dinners and things are just not possible unless the restaurants do them.
So as a market segment, that's one that's surely strained now to do any of their own self-promotion. But it's still a vital aspect of the experience people expect when they come to town.
Well, with regard to the wine aspect in bad weather, whether it's April or February, you know, once the school gym is renovated, you know, there's a great venue for something like that.
Yeah, that would obviously open up some new opportunities, but I guess that's one of the big things about reinventing this or having to kind of come back and say, well, what can we possibly do? What can we do worst case scenario? It's kind of what I presented you with here. You know, I hope we can have events of 10 people in October, but nobody really knows. You know, maybe we'll be able to have events of 20 people. Maybe we'll be farther along than that, but trying to be conservative here and reinvent this. And I think it's been a good exercise. And when is the event that fits Cannon Beach? Good, but yeah, we've been waiting on the school for years and hoping that would be something that would allow us to do something bigger like that.
Tell Bruce to get going.
Did you get going on that? Did we get the commercial kitchen in there?
We're working expeditiously.
There you go.
Actually, we have a meeting on the 20th. I'll do from today to talk about trying to organize the effort on what has to come next when this occur for the project moving forward.
Public meeting, right?
Yes.
Well, I'm happy to be a part of that conversation if I can help. I mean, that's something I've envisioned for years, and I thought that's something that would enable us to actually move towards that self-sustaining model that I know everybody's always hoped for, but it's really challenging given, you know, what Cannon Beach is and our facilities.
Well, is there anything we haven't covered in the proposal that needs more attention or?
I think so.
Make it fun?
I don't think so. I think we'll be able to, I apologize. I just saw a couple of typos before I came over here. And I got this first of all, we had already done a proposal for
Yep.
2021.
Got it?
Because it was due shortly after Seder Cannon Beach. And then I heard the day before I had a little surgery that our application was due on this one, and I went ahead and got it in, even though that deadline was extended. I went, "That's more than this."
Well, we thank you for the effort and the application.
Well, thank you.
Oh, all right.
Did I put you back on schedule now?
Yes, yeah, we just did a little shift of places, a little do-si-do for applicants.
Thanks for your time
Thank you.
and consideration.
Okay.
Bye, Marcy.
Bye.
Okay,
Lila has arrived.
yes, yes. Have you had a chance to catch your breath here before we can ask you about your application?
Well, I somehow missed the email, you know, there's the two applications and one wasn't gonna be in person and then the other was, and anyway, I apologize.
Oh, no. Now, there's been some serious hiccups in our ability to notice. We're also deluged with stuff coming in and these things do get missed, but fortunately, no harm, no foul.
So I actually submitted our application when it was due the first time, but now we're in a different fiscal year, so I revised it to reflect that.
So seeking funding for exhibits, support for the receptions and workshops over an extended time period. Actually throughout much of the shoulder season of the year.
Correct. So it's based upon October to April. I did some research about the shoulder seasons,
Yes.
trying to figure out what exactly it was, and they differ by community. For example, in Bend, you have a different shoulder season than we do.
That makes sense. Character.
I'd ask Greg that question. It seems to me like our shoulders are getting narrower and narrower as Portland population grows and just, whether it's November or February or early March, people are coming to the beach. Greater numbers, right?
Yeah, I mean, so if you're asking me, my opinion on that is really, this weekend is when it drops, October 15th. And it goes down until about the first week of March, with the exception of the holidays. But the difference is what used to be, weekends where maybe you'd get something, every weekend is full. And almost, high 80+%. And in the dead of winter, where, it used to be crickets, there's, I don't know, maybe 50-60% utilization in town, if you're measuring short-term rentals and hotels. And that's because people are coming for what you pay in August. It's a half, more than half off.
Right.
In that time. It's a value season proposition. And Portland's grown so much, you look at at scale, a big scale. So that's my 2 cents. I don't know if it works for everybody that way, but.
Well, and the children aren't in school.
When that's,
This year. Yeah.
September for hotels far outweighs July in terms of occupancy and revenue. Because that's been discovered. The weather's better, kids aren't here. You know, it doesn't hold true for everybody, but, and October is getting that way. But then this, you know, fall starts October 15th. So,
Isn't that funny? Right in the middle of October and it just drops.
you know, but it's not bad. And this year is actually, the people I've talked to is busier than any October in memory. So, and that's because people are homeschooling and working from home and they don't feel like doing it from their, I mean, at our hotel right now, I have someone who lives in Belltown on the 21st floor of their condo.
No, thank you.
And they would rather be here for 10 days and their husband works and they're homeschooling the kids and all that.
And look at the ocean instead of the riots.
Exactly. You know, so there's that kind of thing going on. And I was supposed to go to Disneyland. I was supposed to get on an airplane. So it's all that staycation, tank of gas travel.
So basically, it is an exhibition grant. And we have continued to have our various shows. And we're kind of trying to follow Julie's lead, only she's really good at it. Those virtual sales.
Videos.
Facebook Live, yeah.
Yeah, and so we've been doing that on Facebook and Bob Cole's been our photographer and we did set up an online store. But, you know, interestingly, you can sell jewelry online, but you're not going to sell a big piece of art that people haven't, you know, actually seen. We are getting more traffic, but you know, because of the restrictions on the square footage and how many people you can have. And they're from everywhere. I mean, they're from Washington, they're from the East Coast, and one of our former board members, Katie Mayer, they have an app on their phone that they count the out-of-state cars. And it's been really phenomenal. I've actually thought that might be a way we could somehow link into our TAC data, but I haven't figured that out.
You have to point your phone at the license plate.
Right.
That's great.
So anyway, just like you all know, it's a big learning curve this year.
I don't know what your numbers are, but all I can say is just going over and getting coffee and listening to Scott. Man, that guy can sell art.
Doesn't, he's great at it.
That guy can sell art.
I think it's effective.
Yes.
I think their numbers are up.
Well, our numbers aren't up from last September. Like if you compare this September to last September, they're not up. But since Scott has been on board, except for when we were closed, he sells like $6,000 to $8,000 worth of art a month. It's pretty phenomenal. But he knows art, and he's engaging. Yeah, he's really charming and talks to people and figures out what they want. No, it's something to observe. He even gave me lessons, but it didn't stick.
Well, you've been an institution operating, of course, this year in a limited fashion with the number of people that can be accommodated.
Well, and we're not really using volunteers either because it's so complicated to train them up on the COVID piece and then the square and all of that. We're using Scott Summer primarily. And Summer, by the way, is a good little salesperson too. Last month, she sold $1,800 worth of art, so. They're a good team.
Well, I added up your proposed budget column for the staff budget. And I came up with 26,520 with a request only for 25,000. When I ran through the columns on the TAF budget portion,
Oh,
but just a,
I looked at it like multiple times, but have you ever noticed that when you make a mistake, you can overlook your mistake multiple
oh,
times?
I reinforce my mistakes.
Mm.
So the, not in the TAF budget, of course, is your art camp director and the art camp things that I suppose are subject to radical change in planning based on COVID.
Yeah.
Is that a correct assumption?
Yes. We actually did our summer art camp virtually this year. And we had 40 students and we had 5 teachers, and each teacher came up with their own curricula and then their own supplies. And Andrea and Megan either dropped off or mailed, or people picked up their little box of supplies. And then there was like a Zoom video every day to answer questions and people got to show their art. It was actually really fun, and the kids got a lot out of it because they've been so confined for so long.
Well, it's fun to get a box in the mail.
Oh, yeah.
Stuff in it. Ooh, it's Christmas
They had
morning.
Instructions and it told you everything to do, and
Great idea.
so I don't know what we'll do next year. Do any of us know what we'll do next year?
No.
But anyway, you're right, that part is not in the.
Hey, Lila, this is Steve Sinkler. I was looking at your submission and talking about your marketing plan. I see a lot of print, direct mail and print advertising there. Newsletters you have there, I take it those are printed and mailed out newsletters. Do you guys do a e-newsletter or electronic newsletter that you email out by any chance?
Yes, we do. And
Okay.
we have actually experimented with getting away from print. And our audience really likes like the postcards and those things. But Summer, who is our marketing director, has been doing a lot of Instagram and MailChimp and Facebook and Twitter, and she's our go-to person for that.
Well, you bring up Facebook, and I'm on your Facebook page right now. And I see the last post was May 6th, and really before that, the last gallery art was in February. It seems like there's a lot of opportunity for you to post photos of works on your site and sell them either through a live video or through the online Facebook purchase ability. You've got 2 business owners right there in front of you that are doing this on a regular basis, either with video or selling products online. I think there's a lot of opportunity for you guys to sell art pieces through Facebook. I think Facebook is a fantastic platform to help you with those things. So I think that that's something that you guys should consider doing, is either Facebook Live or have a store where you guys are selling artist works through Facebook.
That's a great suggestion.
It's a good observation. And Yeah,
Thanks for looking at that.
you've already acknowledged the YouTube videos that Julie is doing.
Facebook Live, not YouTube.
Facebook, sorry.
Well, and
Yeah, and she's doing those on a regular basis. And the first couple they're kind of scary to do. You know, but once you kind of get through those first couple and you don't worry about making mistakes, people like that because they know your personality and you can laugh at your own mistake or mispronounce word, whatever it is. But people, it's endearing to people. Plus, you're keeping your business and your artist works in front of your customers. You're not going dark on them, which I think is important.
Right.
I think they're doing that. I think that Film Scott doing a Facebook Live for the new, the latest show, maybe some setting that Steve is not seeing the whole, because I'm pretty sure they're doing.
Because I saw it.
Yeah.
is it loaded onto your page? For some reason, your page isn't loading in here. I don't know why, but did he load? Because I told him, when I'm done with it, I immediately load it up to Facebook and I immediately load it up to Instagram on my page so people can get it on both platforms. And I don't know if he did that or not.
Yes, he did, because I saw it.
Okay.
But, yeah, Bob Kroll did the video
Mhm.
part. And Summer did all the technical part, because Scott's a good salesman.
Yep.
We have to have a technician
Yep.
too. Anyway, so I don't know why you're not seeing it, because it was really fun.
I think your page is just not loading for me for some reason in here. I will go back to my office and look at it.
Well, and of course, the regularity of that
Yes.
will break people into the habit of checking it and increase its utility.
Because I can do it once a week because I have new stuff every single week, but you guys have a display up for 6 weeks, so you don't necessarily want to revisit every week,
Right.
but I don't know if there's a way to get people to like, okay, well, it's the first Thursday of the month, whatever the thing is that could be regular, and do a reminder and do a thing that we're going to go live, and then it'll be loaded up there, and act fast because some art can disappear. But I totally get, Lila, that not everything is going to sell that way,
Right.
particularly with art. I have a different situation because I'm more selling supplies essentially. But I do think you're right, jewelry, there are some smaller items and jewelry and things that are a little less, you're not going to sell a $2,500 painting probably. Although Jeff Hull does his first look email and people buy, the last one I heard was $4,200. But they know his work and it's an original and they know there's only going to be one and, but I think you just have to be creative about how you can use it. But
Well, and Scott did the Saver one, was his first one, and you're right, he was really nervous that time. And then this one that they just did, it was a lot smoother. And he's like, I can do this regularly now.
well, I'll go out and look and see, because I do think it's kind of a cool thing. Yeah,
But I'm able to see posts from October 7th, October 9th. I mean,
really?
there's stuff.
Are you on Cannon Beach Arts Association?
It's Cannon Beach Galleries.
Oh,
The Cannon Beach
Oh,
Arts
maybe that's why.
Association is an unofficial page and it has like 7 likes, but if you go, you can find the Cannon Beach Gallery, which is-
okay, hold on. Cannon Beach Gallery. Thank you. Cannon Beach Gallery. No wonder I'm not seeing posts. There you are.
Yep, now I see you have posts through October 9th.
Thanks, I thought I was going crazy.
Association.
You're in good company.
Thanks, Amber.
Oh, cool. Well, I will definitely take a peek at this.
And I think there's a thing in Facebook where when people look for something, it creates an unofficial page, because we had the same problem at the city before we had a city Facebook page, that there was like an unofficial one that
Yes.
had and so that's what that first one was. I think.
I'll take a look. I'm not sure I saw his Facebook Lives, and I probably should, since they've been doing mine. I should look at them. Okay. There he is. Yep. He did an hour-long one, brave him. That won't work on Instagram, but that's okay. Instagram, you have 15 minutes on Instagram, so I talk fast.
No, it is so fun. You're our go-to trainer.
And there was participation in the video with the spring unveiling virtual event as another kind of thing to market with the.
I liked your unboxing that you did. That's a great idea. Nothing better than watching something come out of the newspaper and it's like, ah.
And it's a perfect example of what Steve was saying. You know, people love it when you fumble, and that's
Yeah.
my best talent.
Mine too.
Okay.
All right.
So, yeah. Every category of request is only a portion of that total expense. So every request dollar in here is only for a percentage of things that would be normal business operations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I didn't, see what I did. The funny thing was I turned this in on the first due date
Yep.
and then realized that, oh my, it's a really different year now.
Oh, yes.
Way more ways than one.
And
The old one.
for the sample. Like utilities is such a small thing, I didn't even. And I was actually trying to be really conservative because I know that there's a lot of competition for this funding and so, trying to be conservative about it.
Sounds like you're taking responsibility for the accountability.
Well, we all have to, right?
Yep.
All right. Very nice. Thank you
So
very
when,
Yeah.
what's the next date?
When do we get together to talk about the numbers?
I believe it's October 21st. We are gonna have, I think that's the date out. Let me double check.
Yep.
I think that sounds right too.
Yeah, October 21st, you guys are gonna meet to discuss your recommendations. And then this will go to council either the last week of October in a special meeting or just at the November 3rd meeting as a presentation and vote at the same time. We're gonna kind of see what council says tonight. So the goal is that council would vote on November 3rd is our plan.
And if you, and we're here on October 21st, if you want to hear us discuss. I think that's a public meeting as well.
Yes.
Well, they're all public meetings.
Sure.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and thanks for doing this. I know it was really challenging this year with trying to figure out the income streams and how to be fair and.
Every group has been challenged with, you know, the necessary changes in their plans. Our goal was simply to facilitate as well as we could
It might be worth it.
what those changes might require.
Or at least a Zoom.
So,
That's true. I could Zoom.
We all appreciate it.
okay.
So thanks, and sorry I got mixed up on the date.
Oh.
You wake up and wonder what day it is.
Constantly.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
What's that? What time is that meeting on the 21st? When?
1 to 3, I think.
Let me pop back into the calendar real quick.
It is.
It is.
Yep.
Yeah, I have 1 to 3 on my. Okay. Even do you have that? 1 to 3 on the 21st? Oh, Stephen left.
And
I just had to unmute. Yeah, I do.
Okay, just wanted to check.
Thank you.
And you're actually driving back tonight for tomorrow?
Tomorrow morning.
Oh, wow, okay.
Oh, long haul.
Yep.
Okay, Andrew, from Tolovana Arts Colony. Like,
The mic gets back or?
You might want to.
Yes.
Yeah. You might want to.
He really doesn't want to hear my vote.
I think this is a good example. Thank you. Oh, Bruce left too. I was going to say Bruce encouraged you to put this in, a good example of working on our product, just like the school building is.
There is the week of the 26th are recommendations delivered to the city council. The date is not set. It's either going to be probably Monday or Thursday.
And we are expected to be at that meeting? Or would
Anyone who
be
can attend
helpful?
is welcome. I know that, I'm committed to delivering a message from the group.
Right. I am available both of those nights, so you let me know what night it is and I'm more than happy to attend.
Perfect.
I missed all that, but me too.
Okay. And Greg.
Parks and Resource Subcommittee grant recommendation for tonight. Special events, this is Jeff. talking about
I think the council will pick the date.
And is that tonight? Or
Yes,
is what's happening tonight? So I'm gonna run home and eat something and then come back for council tonight.
me too.
Yeah, exactly. And you said they're discussing the brainstorming ideas that happen from retailers, or you think they are tonight?
Yeah, on the agenda is the,
Number 3 is ongoing assistance to businesses.
yes, that's it.
Interesting, okay. I will attend.
Rusty, will people on Zoom be able to be unmuted and speak to that?
If
No.
they have notified us ahead of time, yes.
The deadline was noon today for public comment via Zoom.
Yeah, but like, I know Jim was lining up a bunch of, business owners in town. So you probably got a list of them that you did not.
I have nobody who requested to speak tonight.
Does that change if they're in person though?
If you're in person, you can sign in, yes. So I'll check with Bruce when he comes back to see if he had anything.
And I think yesterday Jim had sent, there were like 6 or 7 people that own businesses that were going to speak. And I don't know if it was Zoom or in person, but eventually you can't fit them all in here.
Oh, he did say, okay, so I didn't see, I've also asked several people from various local industries to talk on behalf of their businesses. But they didn't actually contact us with their names to say that we're going to speak, and we can't unmute people unless we know who they are. So that's why we have to know who specifically wants to speak.
The email I saw had them on the seat, copied, but that doesn't really.
Well, and the one I have was to the counselors. When we get done with here, I'll call Jim when we get done, because Rusty has to be able to unmute them and know who they are.
Sometimes people don't put their name on there or use
Right.
their phone, because I have no idea who it is.
Yeah, I'll follow up with Jim because I didn't actually receive any requests to speak. He did say that he has people who'd like to speak, but nobody actually said, here's the official request, but I'll follow up with Jim when we get done.
So before we start, speaking on this, I was one of the people that Jim had asked to speak. I wasn't aware that there was a noon deadline for that, but Jim had asked me to speak, and I am in Bend. That's why I'm participating via Zoom. And then my name will show up on the screen just like it does now.
Okay, and then that deadline is on all of our agendas on the website, and that's the deadline we've had since we started doing Zoom
Okay.
meetings. But I'll work with Jim when we get done.
All right.
And then coordinate with Rusty.
And Rusty now knows who you are, Stephen. So
Excellent.
you're obvious.
Steve, you're doing a marathon of Zooming today.
I am doing a lot of Zooming.
Then just a quick reminder, since we're talking about this, our council chamber maximum, including staff, is 25. So if we hit that 25 number, we have to shut the door and not let anyone else in. So just to let everyone know that that includes staff member, counselors, everybody.
Yes, I'll be zooming.
So just a heads up, just in case.
We got Tuesday night football, I'll get a Zoom.
Pardon?
You have a planning commission meeting that people were beating down the door to get in, I understand.
There, last month was a lot of Zoom attendance, and we received a lot of public comment beforehand, and not many people were here in attendance, but there were more on Zoom, and people submitted written comment.
But the S-curve controversy, the people will be lining up, around the
Yeah.
block.
But the max is 25. We have to, by state law,
Right.
close it.
Good.
Yep.
Good.
Okay.
Andrew.
Yes, are we ready?
I think so.
We are.
Well, thanks everyone for taking the time and hearing all these proposals. I'll just say where it started. I was meeting with Bruce early in the year to discuss the renewal of on lease, on home, which we did renew this year, so we have a question lease here. I was just kind of going through, a wish list, or just talking about, there's a lot of folks that, just use the hall, that would love to see it, a little cozier, a little, contemporary. And he suggested that he said, write it back, that's what this stuff is for. So I did it, and here we are. I imagine most of you have been in the hall. The old ceramic floor is, I don't know how many years, decades old. It shows its age. It's just, it's not a pretty thing. It's also less than ideal for those who dance on it, which is something that's all used a lot. Slippery, tar, just not ideal. And again, there's an aesthetic concern, and that aesthetic concern extends to lighting. As some of the people on this board know, and we have members on our board who are gallerists, and when you're showing art, lighting matters, and it matters for performances too. We have just these old halogen tubes. So those have long been our two. I mean, these are things we've identified for years that we'd like to enhance. I provided a menu of different options, and I think it does. Besides enhancing the art, I think planning does. It does enhance tourism as well, as I mentioned in the grant. Numerous grant awards, folks like the College Tour, the culinary festival, used for the comedy festival, and then, takes and to extends also to all of the Arts Colony programming, which happens year-round, draw tourists. And I think this is compared to some of the size of some of the requests to this committee, I think this is a relative, it's a fraction of some of that, and it's something that will last for years, if not decades to come. By residents and visitors. Yeah, I mean, it's a permanent enhancement to the community.
So, it's been a while since I've been in there, and I'm not picturing what the kitchen looks like. But it seems to me like it was an older, like 70s kitchen.
Well, that's not entirely true.
Okay.
The kitchen was redone by the city before I came on.
Okay.
So that's now, I don't know, 5+ years ago. We have a nice stainless steel countertop.
Okay.
Beautiful six burner Wolf So.
Fabulous. That's all I want to know. So you've got essentially a commercial kitchen.
There are aspects of it, it could use a fresh coat of paint. And I think, like, as you see in the menu of options, there's, you can do the main floor and not do the kitchen floor. And the kitchen floor has this checkered white, black, large tiles, which doesn't match the main floor. Not the worst, it's not as disagreeable as the main floor, but I think if you're gonna go the whole way to match it, would be, but yeah, the stainless counters are great.
Yeah, I'm glad the kitchen's been done because that's way more expensive than flooring.
So I should point out that the reason that Bruce told you to apply for a TAC grant is so he didn't have to pay for it out of the general fund. Very generous of him to offer. But I think it's a good project. It's you gotta keep it up. What about the tap dancers? Or the new floor, is the new floor gonna be destroyed by tap dancers?
I showed the samples to Nadine. She was the tap dance teacher, and she has been on my behind to get the floor fixed up in there.
Okay.
So I assume, and I showed her the samples, I don't know.
That's fine, Nadine. If Nadine gave you the pass.
I've been promising her we do something like this.
And the lighting would be LED fluorescent or something like that.
There's different options. So Candy Electrical did the last work in there, I believe, so they're familiar with so that you can put in LED bulbs to the current banks, and then you can replace the banks that you see in the lighting fixture, the new fixture versus the retrofit option, which is the LED. I think includes a dimmer, which is a big deal.
Would be nice.
Very nice.
But yeah, getting.
The utilization of the hall in terms of rentals on an annual basis?
That has changed actually since since this was put together. When we re-signed our lease, the council said we shouldn't be doing rentals. They don't want us doing rentals in there right now. And I at the time.
Council doesn't?
And then I thought about it and I wanted to revisit it with them because they're like, the public building, it shouldn't be used for a wedding or something like that. So then I thought the chamber hall does that. Well, that's perfectly reasonable and everyone can support it. So.
Well, that building is owned by the chamber, but the land is owned by the city.
Right.
It's something that,
But why would they object to it being, if it's not being used for a class or anything? Why would they object to it being rented for a wedding?
I don't know why.
Insurance issue,
Oh, okay.
because the city owns that building.
Yeah.
And then when Andrew has events coming in through that, that's an agreement. When you have somebody outside of this group coming in to do a wedding, I mean, there's an insurance requirement. And I think that was one of the things the council was concerned
That was
about.
not just discussed. The way I think as I remember it at the meeting, we carry insurance policy for the building. That's, names the city, but they didn't mention, I think they were just kind of uncomfortable with the concept, which.
So if that is your question, I just say, I don't understand why that would be their decision. To me, and I think, where I stand on the use of TAC funds for this kind of stuff, I absolutely think it's a great use of it. It matches all the OSR 320 rules and so forth. It brings people to town, it keeps them in town overnight, it supports the arts, it supports events.
Yeah.
Even though you can't really do events right now.
Right. It's investing for future events.
Yeah.
We can do events again.
It won't be disrupted.
It's like the 10 grand or whatever we put, actually we ended up not putting it towards the band shell.
Exactly.
But, and that does go against the charter of what TAC was to promote the arts, but this does promote the arts in my mind.
Yep.
And to me, it's a no-brainer. It looks good. But if you tell me that the city is saying, no, you can't have weddings there anymore, or you can't have And why a wedding? What if I want to do, I have a large collection of art. If I wanted to put on my own art show
Yeah.
and, that's an event. So can I not rent it?
Yeah,
That's a game changer.
that seems totally
In
weird.
that case, to satisfy it, we would have, as I understand it, we would partner with you and make it the art colony would sponsor that
Yeah.
event to make it possible. But they didn't want private events. Like I was like, if a business wanted to have a retreat there.
Yeah, so here's the minutes. It's actually from the minutes. I hope we don't get to the point we lose a meeting hall as it's a community use, perhaps more so than public use. So I think it was about, you want it to remain a community thing. So you
But
don't want
the
public use.
buying the elementary school is different from that, Al?
Yeah, exactly.
That would be my question. I wasn't in that discussion with the council.
I mean, I understand the point and that community events, I would think a community event would want to come first, but if you have June, the first week of June available, and there's no community events, why couldn't you rent it for a
I
wedding?
feel like I made the offer. I was like, well, what if we always let community events take precedence?
Yeah, because those are going to have to be pre-planned.
Well, that's difficult on a reservation basis.
Right.
But like I'm on your website right now and you have a non-member and a member price. I would quadruple the non-member price
Exactly.
and keep the member price at whatever. It just seems like the low utilization of a city-owned asset that is designed to promote and enhance tourism and the arts. And
People staying overnight.
yeah,
My argument is, or was, by using the money from rentals, sports programming.
Yeah.
It makes us able to offer more and cheaper events.
And if I'm worried about it, you could do a thing where it's 25-75. It has to be 75% used for the community, and then 25% of your dates can be used for private events, or something like that. I mean, there's got to be a workaround.
but
Does the children's the academy use it at all?
They were, they're not, because they're not.
Yeah, right.
In person, but the city has become kind of a go-between. They want to approve now everything with the school that goes on in the hall. So that's great.
Glad Bruce isn't here. I'd like to understand what.
That's a in the lease that instead of. coordinating with
Issue that
them, they-
pertains to
the city
whether we
does.
would fund it or not?
Like we were having they were doing some cooking, the students, because we have a better kitchen than they do. And I think that the city wasn't entirely comfortable with that.
well, I'm sorry, Jim, what was your question?
I was wondering how the city views the usage of that is something that pertains to how our committee would choose to fund this or not. I mean, without resolving that issue of rental usage, I would feel comfortable going ahead with making a determination one way or another on this. Without
On this
knowing that.
particular application?
Yes.
As you said, Greg, that would be a game changer.
It's a game changer. If you can't rent the hall to people not members or part of the community, then in my mind, that could go against the restriction of the funding.
For all the community uses, if let's say, a local nonprofit wants to have a meeting there, as long as they're not making money on it, we can give it to them.
No,
So not even like, aside from, what we're now not supposed to do, like letting a corporate, as long as it's open to the public.
And art events occur there.
yeah. And classes and
Yes.
things like that. And I get that, but if you are taking this restricted money, restricted by the state of Oregon in terms of how you can use it, and using it in a fashion that doesn't promote tourism heads in beds.
I would say because it's still used by other groups that receive money from this board that do heads and beds type of events, as well as our own programming, I would argue that it still meets that criteria.
Yeah, and this is a capital investment that, for whatever the use of the building, which is predominantly your organization. I mean, you're what do you, with your classes and everything, you're probably, 90% use of the building?
Yeah, I mean, the school was using it pretty frequently, but that again,
I wouldn't think, I mean, $10,000, you know, for very, very much needed activities seems like a reasonable ask. So anyway, we can talk about this at our meeting, but
Yeah.
I would like to understand what what the view is there.
That came from the council more
Yeah.
than.
Interesting. Okay.
There was, it was just the way the lease was written, it kind of,
It went back to the public use thing, because looking at the
Yeah.
minutes, it was all about the term of public use.
Right.
And so that's where it was some language in the lease.
what if Gary Hayes wanted to use it for part of the Sabre thing, you know, for his micro?
But that would be a TAC,
Yeah.
event, so that's not,
yeah,
it's not really public because you'd have to buy a ticket to go, but I went to your comedy thing and you had to buy a ticket to go. So
I think it's more like, it would be something that would be exclusive, like
a wedding.
a wedding.
Yeah.
You know, Thanksgiving, family dinner, corporate retreat.
Okay, so if you take weddings off the thing, but
Now, what about Nike wants to rent it for one of their offsite thingies that they do down
well,
here?
it's still a private event.
Right. So why would you not want to rent to Nike if you've got room and you can make a boatload of money off of Nike? Why wouldn't you do that?
Well, I wish you guys were here at the.
I mean,
Well, you've got all the capitalists in this room, so we're.
it baffles me, and the precedent by buying the school is just the exact
It's
opposite.
exactly the same thing.
So-
exactly. So,
So it's, you can pick and choose, I guess, but
but Bruce isn't here.
yeah.
But let me tell you what, this is how it came up. So the lease actually says, lessee shall use and permit the use of premises only for public purpose, which is the operation of Tolovana Arts Colony, a public community facility. Principal public purposes include the lessee holding classes, lectures, meetings, forums, and similar events that are open to the public and available to all, as well as meetings of community groups and clubs, but does not include private events.
That's the new lease.
That's the new lease. This is what is in the lease now.
But prior to whenever that was, it was okay.
Prior to it, the language was vague. We asked about it because we hired a lawyer to just look over all of our business, and the lawyer suggested we get clarification on that point in the lease. Because maybe a sentence, it wasn't
Yeah, so
exhaustive, so by bringing that up, we're kind of having.
Dang.
here's what your old lease said, basically about public purposes for which the operation of Tolovana Arts Colony, a public community facility. Lessee is solely responsible for the operation of the building for such public purpose. No other uses shall be allowed. In the event of other uses are allowed, the lease shall terminate immediately. So technically on the old lease, he shouldn't have been renting it.
Right, at all.
So when it got brought up,
Yeah.
then, so sometimes things happen even when they don't follow the language.
Huh, interesting.
Well, I guess we'll have a chance to discuss that one, but that's our meeting to, I think, reconcile our numbers.
But in terms of what's presented here and the intent and stuff, I thought it was well put together. And
Yes.
barring the usage thing, I think it's very good.
That's for me.
Thank you.
That's it. Thank you.
See you.
Thank you for being willing to sit with us, sir. We really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, that's our last
Okay.
scheduled application,
What we're doing tomorrow.
but, and we will be back tomorrow, but now for the good of the order, I believe we have an item. You mentioned there was a good of the order.
That was at council tonight. They're going to discuss tonight during good of the order. They're going to discuss whether they want to have a council meeting the week of the 26th to discuss the recommendations, or their other option is you do all of it at November 3rd.
Right.
So they'll decide that tonight and we'll shoot an email out tomorrow.
Okay,
Okay. Oh, we have to.
anything else? Committee members? Okay, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
I'm going to go call Jim Pano.
And Jennifer.
I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Bye, Stephen.
Thank you, Steve.
Is there anything on here about how to zoom into tonight's meeting in this little pile over here?
The directions